Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on B2B demand generation on autopilot with Metadata.io. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about account-based marketing and machine learning and how you can create your successful strategy to launch an ABM project and figure out how to optimize it and make it successful. Before we get started, I'm going to do some housekeeping announcements. So on the left of your screen there, you'll see that there is a chat box. So feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. We'll try to get to them in the order that they come in. But like I said, you can ask questions at any point. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded. So we'll send out a link to view that recording sometime later this week. If you registered for the webinar, it'll come to your email address. If not, you can always drop us a note at sales@metadata.io, and we'll make sure you get a copy of it. We'll also get it up in our blog in the next few days as well. So to kick things off, like I said, we're talking a little bit about automating digital marketing. My name is Nate Phillip. I'll be your speaker for today. I'm on the marketing team at Metadata. We're a company that's about 2 years old, and what we were founded to solve a problem. So what we saw out there in the market is that there are hundreds and hundreds of ABM tools, and what we wanted to do is take some crucial parts of those ABM components and consolidate them into a single platform. So that's really the foundation and the goal behind Metadata, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But for now, just to frame the conversation, I think there are a few questions that we're trying to answer today on this webinar. So one is, why is ABM interesting? What makes it unique or different from what came before it? And why do people care about it so much? The second is going to be a question of, how do you determine if ABM is the right fit for your company? And then how do you actually go about executing on an ABM strategy? And lastly, we'll focus on what are some of the challenges that you might expect rolling this out, and setting it up and rolling it out. To kick things off, I just want to start off by defining, what is different about ABM. So in the traditional view of the world, or specifically in the B2C version of the world, your addressable market is enormous. These are companies that sell to everybody. If you're Nike, if you're Coca-Cola, everybody has feet that need shoes. Everybody likes to drink liquids, right? So, these are companies that sell to everyone. They want to make a loud, big splash and focus on the entire world as their potential market. Those mass consumer dynamics don't apply in the B2B world. So that's where, the account-based marketing comes in. Is it's a way to narrow down that addressable market and focus your spending on specific groups. So you want to be as accurate and productive as you can with your B2B marketing dollars. Unlike in B2C, where say they're measured on awareness or other sort of larger metrics, in B2B, what we're really measured on is our contribution and how we impact the sales pipeline. So in order to do that, where do you focus on when you're starting with ABM? One is you want to eliminate the noise. So there's going to be lots of people into your sales and marketing systems that you just don't care too much about. They might be students, they might be competitors, maybe they're companies that are too big or too small. They're going to come in. It's inevitable, but you don't want to waste your time or efforts on these people. You want to focus on opportunities are going to come out of the most relevant leads. So the way you do that is first to understand who used to in the past, and then focus on replicating the programs that generated those leads. So traditionally, you might understand that you sell into a particular industry or you sell to a particular job title. With ABM and our philosophy is taking it a step further and beyond that. So what we focus on is understanding behaviors of the companies that you sell to and the personas that are involved in those sales. So, we focus on criteria that are going to generate a focus list of companies. And that's, again, the reason why we do this is because we have limited time and limited resources, and it's expensive to go through and do a lot of sifting. That's something that salespeople don't like doing it. And on the marketing side, we can do a lot to minimize the amount of time that people have to spend going through and figuring out who's good and who's the diamond in that rough. So that's kind of the ultimate goal here. So what about ABM is a challenge for this? Well, there's three main buckets of ABM tools out there. And the first thing you want to do is define what your ideal customer profile is. So that's what these buyer insights vendors can help you do. So what do I mean by ideal customer profile, or ICP? It's really a combination of two things. There's your company demographics, information about what kind of companies you actually sell to, and then there's buyer personas at those companies. So these might be people who are involved in technical evaluation, or maybe there's a different persona that's focused on budgeting and TCO. You might have a different persona that's an executive sponsor who focuses more on the strategy and the vision. So understanding all these different components of the ideal customer profiles is not always the simplest thing to do. So that's where tools in this buyer insights, this first category here, come into play. And so for buyer insights, they might be focused on enriching the data that you already have, or looking at what's been successful in building that profile of who is going to be a good customer for you. And they also might provide some tools to do scoring to help identify what those ideal customers are in your database and help you prioritize your outreach. The second big bucket we see here is data sources. So these are companies where you might go and purchase data, like an Inside View or ZoomInfo. There are places where you might take the information that you've built through buyer insights and that ideal customer profile, and you want to go and build a list based on these criteria, and generate some leads that way, or generate some contacts or prospects that way. Lead generation, this third bucket, is more about engaging with those lists and actually executing on your strategy. So this can be a lot of different activities, like a marketing automation system where you run email campaigns, or running ads on tools like AdRoll or DataZoo. The problem with these is that it's just really difficult to connect all three of these buckets. How do you actually take that ideal customer profile that you got from your buyer insights and apply it to your execution campaigns? Some of the challenges there is, do you actually have a team that's technical enough to write scripts to automate these connections, or are you going to have your team manually export some of these profiles and in a CSV file or whatever, and then put it together with your lead generation tools and do all of that yourself? That can be really time-consuming and really challenging for a lot of marketing departments out there. And then the second main challenge is going to be, when something does go right or go wrong, how do you figure out where that happened, or what the problem was, or what the unique conditions are that made it a success? With so many different moving parts, different systems, and potentially different people on your team operating all these different products, it gets really difficult to figure out how to analyze your successes and your failures. There are some vendors and some ways you can run reports to figure this out. So if you're not already looking at your lead source data or measuring your success from different UTM tags or using some sort of marketing attribution tool, you should look into those. But those are small steps sometimes, and not necessarily going to get you that closed loop system or closed loop workflow where all three of these are combined into and able to pull from each other and and really simplify the analytics. So those are the two main challenges. As far as strategies go, we recommend there's two things you can focus on that you can really control. So one is going to be the audience that you target. The second one's going to be your sort of experimentation and execution process. So let's start with the audience here. So with audiences, you typically use demographic data to define your audience. Things like the industry or the job titles, things like that, which are very typical. We're also including is the behavior of these leads. So what you might want to look at is, are leads, or are people out there, not necessarily leads, are they looking at technologies that are similar to yours? Are they looking at your product or your competitors, et cetera? And you want to take, or are they interacting with your resources or your website? These are behavioral things that you might want to focus on in addition to just sort of demographics. And the other thing you want to do is make sure that you're staying synced up with your sales team so that they know what these behaviors are, or they agree that the demographics you're using are the ones that are agreed upon. That definitely simplifies things down the road to make sure that you're all on the same page. Now, on this next slide, you can see sort of an example. This is from the Metadata platform of a profile that's being built out. So these are typical filters that we might use, like revenue bands or job functions for the specific personas that you're targeting, or maybe it's a specific location, like you only want to look at North America or just the US, right? These are things that you might want to talk to your sales team about and make sure that they're aware of these as well. But you want to define these demographics, whatever technology use they might have. And at Metadata, the way we do it, and the way that this particular screenshot and customer profile is built out, is by cross-referencing multiple data sources. So we're using the CRM, and we're using third-party data, and building this profile using these various inputs. So there's different ways to experiment and test on that, but that's one thing you really want to focus on understanding and getting agreement on your team is, what is this audience? How are you defining it? The next one is going to be executing on that. So that's testing and experimenting, and how do you go about doing that? So, well, there's lots of different avenues or channels where you can do these tests. So you can run paid advertising campaigns or display ads. You can run a retargeting campaign, or say you have some new assets like a white paper or a webinar that you want to promote. So getting these types of things out there are ways that you can apply these ABM strategies and execute on them using these channels. So first, what you'd want to do is figure out what your goal is going to be. You want to set an aggressive goal. So say you want X number of people to be signed up for your webinar, or you need to improve your conversion rates by a certain percentage, or whatever that goal is. You have to figure out what it is and define it. So metadata, where we come in and where we really see ourselves as experts is less like we're not the folks who are going to build the best creative. That's not our core competency. Where we excel is really in the scientific process and the use of multivariant experimentation. So what do we mean by multivariant experimentation? Well, first off, you want to have lots of variables out there. So this is just an example of some of the different things that you might want to test. So you have different channels, like maybe you're advertising on Facebook or Twitter or all of them. You have different assets and campaign types for different audiences. So say you have 4 different personas that you've identified. Well, you want to test all of them. Same with the creative and your ad copy. So the challenge here is that if you're using a traditional model of doing an A/B test, that's really difficult to measure all of these with an A/B test, because you're only going to be picking 2 variables at any given moment, and it gets really challenging using that technique. What you really want to do is try hundreds and hundreds of different experiments. And this is something where, setting up an A/B test manually is just you're not gonna get there. What you need is an AI engine that can help go through this really quickly and eliminate some of the challenges that doing this manually would have. So automating this process with hundreds of experiments, one of the things that you can get out of that is you really quickly identify the bottlenecks. So, for example, if you're running these campaigns and you see that maybe Twitter, for example, is not converting the way you want it to, or maybe there's a particular landing page that you are testing, and everybody gets to that landing page and the numbers look good until they get there, and then suddenly they drop off. So now okay, maybe this landing page needs a redesign, or maybe the form on it is asking too much information, or maybe there's a badly worded question or something along those lines. You really get to the point where you can very quickly figure out, hey, there's a problem in this aspect. Let's do a deep dive and take a look at what's not working, with that specific piece. And so the other aspect of doing these hundreds of experiments really quickly is that we've seen that there's a specific rule. We call it the 15-85 rule. You might have heard of 20-80 that we've seen in real life or in our practice, that 15% of these experiments turn out to be successful, high ROI generating leads. So that's the typical ratio of what we see with the, if you run 500 experiments, 15% are going to be successful. But really, when we're talking about that, we're talking about ROI. So we really have to think about what we're measuring and calling a success, right? So with ads, it can't be just about generating impressions or clicks. And certainly those are statistics that you want to pay attention to. But when we're talking about the ultimate measure, that's not necessarily where we're going to focus. Another thing that you might be able you might want to focus on is are the conversions coming in from this campaign the right company and fit? Do the personas that are coming through fit your ideal customer profile, your ICP? And that's kind of the next level of measuring the success of these campaigns, and that's a good movement in the right direction. But really, what we want to see with KPIs, there's a few things that we really look for. One is, are these people engaging with the programs? Are they actually, like I said, converting? The other one is, are they scoring highly? So if you have lead scoring in place, how do these leads coming in from this campaign compare to other ads campaigns that you might have run or other channels? Next, we want to focus on, are they engaging with sales? Are they actually picking up the phone and talking to these people, or responding to emails, or actually replying to these people and getting into the sales funnel? And that's an important step. And then the last, and really the ultimate, and what we try to get our customers towards is, are these leads coming in through this campaign generating opportunities and impacting your pipeline? So again, with a closed loop, you can get to these higher levels, but you really have to keep growing and growing and taking your KPIs and your measuring up a level each time in order to really figure out how to build that predictable and repeatable model. So that's one of the benefits of doing this multivariate testing, is that you're running so many experiments that you can get to these higher levels much quicker. You'll figure out what parts are working, and say you have 15% that was successful. Now what you want to do in the next round is replicate that. You take your 15% and then start building 500 new experiments that model that 15 successful percent, and continue to iterate and iterate. As you deep dive on what's successful, and then figure out new things to test that you can improve on further. So yeah, that's really the benefit of doing the tests at this level. Additionally, there's some tactics that we've seen at Metadata that we really like. This is not necessarily meant to be an exhaustive list. These are just sort of our top 6 of successful tactics that we've seen in the past. So we talked a little bit already about sort of buyer intent, that first category of solutions. It's a way to figure out who's talking about your solution or who's talking about your technology or competitors, and figuring out how to focus on those people. So that's certainly a good way to improve the quality of your leads. With air cover, this is another one where if your sales team especially is all in on account-based marketing, each rep, maybe they're divided by geography or something, and they have a specific list, maybe it's 100 accounts or 500 accounts that each rep is targeting. Well, as a marketer, we can just build dashboards to take those accounts and those territories and show the sales team, on a person by person level or an account by account level, what those engagements look like. Like, did they click on one of our ads? Did they download a paper, et cetera? For pipeline acceleration, this third bucket here, this is one where, if you have opportunities already, that doesn't necessarily mean that marketing's job is over. So one thing that we can do is help push deals to close, right? The scariest thing, or the biggest waste of resources, can be having an opportunity that's stuck in limbo and clogging up your pipeline. It wastes sales time to keep going after these folks, and anything that we can do as marketers to help is good in this sense. So one thing that we've got our customers doing is running ads against these limbo accounts. And there's a little bit of a difference here where, they're already an opportunity. They're probably aware of your company, your technology. Maybe they're looking at your competitors already. The top of the funnel content, like a white paper, is not going to be relevant for these folks, and it's not going to move the needle. So for these types of campaigns, you want to focus on bottom of the funnel assets, stuff like maybe a case study or product comparison charts or TCO calculators. One thing that we found is really effective is testimonials from customers. People tend to trust names that they've heard of, so that can also be something to focus on for these types of campaigns. So you really want to match the content to the persona and the pipeline stage. So if somebody is stuck in that limbo stage, all of a sudden they might see ads from your company saying, hey, compare us to these 3 competitors and check out our chart that we've put together, right? And so that's something where you can measure that engagement. You can let sales know, hey, that lead that's in limbo, or that opportunity that's in limbo now, they're looking at a TCO calculator, right? So it's just a way to help move those leads along and keep accelerate that pipeline. For TOEFL, this top of the funnel leads, this fourth bucket here. So this is a way to generate leads quickly that are the intersection of that match the intersection of data points that you've identified. So maybe you're with your ideal customer profile, you've identified revenue stages, or maybe it's specific geolocations that are relevant for your business, or technology use is one we've seen a lot, where if they have either competing technologies or complementary technologies, that can be a really good indicator that they're going to be a good lead for you. So with top of the funnel lookalikes, what we do is take that universe of people who might be relevant for your product and narrow it down using these filters into a smaller list of prime targets. Sometimes you can get this down to a really, really narrow list, and that's great because it gives you a focused list of people you can target, and that they're going to be good once they come in. Sometimes it's a little stressful, so if the overlap of all these different, this is a Venn diagram, that center section might seem a little too small. So we can expand it to wider audiences, but what's really critical when you're doing that is to make sure that the assets match the filter that you're using. So if it's, say, technology use, you want to make sure that any ad that's going out to that person takes that into account or mentions the technology that they're using. For persona insight, we talked about this a little bit already. It's just making sure that your campaigns are targeting based on the insights you have. So, if you're running a campaign that's for a TCO calculator, you want to focus on the titles that are going to be caring most about budgeting and so forth. And if it's a technical resource, you want to make sure that it's the the engineering team that you're focusing on for that campaign. Or if it's a white paper, maybe it's the executives that you're focusing on, making sure that those assets match the persona that you're targeting. And then lastly, we have a named accounts. This is something that if you haven't already, you need to start doing if you're going to launch an ABM campaign. It's, you have to have a list of targeted accounts. If you need help generating one of those, come talk to us at Metadata. That's something we can definitely help with. But the key here is that you have a list of companies are going to be good targets, and you've talked to your sales team. You've gotten them involved with it as well. And then you can focus on targeting those companies in your ads. Maybe they even mention the company name or some specific known attribute about these companies. So we found that when you personalize the ads in that way, you definitely get better conversion rates. So yeah, those are just a few of the tactics that we like to use here. Again, not an exhaustive list by any means, but some that we have seen used in the past, and definitely ones that lead to success. This last slide, there we go. This is just a blueprint of what I mean when I say closed loop sales and marketing. It's something where you have a process that can repeat and improve upon itself. This actually matches up to those 3 buckets of vendors that we talked about a little bit at the beginning of this webinar. So the first of that bucket, if you remember, is buyer insights. And if you see the dotted line here, that's where that comes into play in this chart. We're taking data from marketing automation tools. We're taking data from your CRM, enriching it with third-party data, doing some profiling, and figuring out who those buyers are, what that ideal customer profile looks like. That's very much inherent to this closed-loop process. The next bucket was data sources. So we saw enrichment happening throughout this process. We want to make sure that we're always getting as much data from either our internal systems or third-party systems in order to make more informed choices. So that's where that's coming into play here. And then the last bucket of those 3 sort of disjointed technologies was lead generation. So you see that at this lower box where we talk about advertising channels and the opt-in leads that come out of those. Those are your engagement programs. And so here we're looking at advertising as the example. But really the benefit of this is that it's an iterative process to go through this loop. As you continue to sell, as you continue to get more customers, or more leads at least, and as you continue to close those deals, the system learns from itself. It continues to narrow down and figure out what those target accounts and target profiles look like, and it applies that learning to the entire system as it continues to loop. That's really the strength of this. And the benefit is that you get higher quality leads, so you have more predictable results. So for example, if the goal here would be, say, as a marketer, you want to say, for this campaign, I need $50,000 to run ads. I'm expecting, based on iterations from this model, I'm expecting 500 leads out of that. 250 are going to MQL, or 50%. Out of that, let's say 80% make to SQL, and then 10% of those actually generate opportunities, right? So now we've got a formula. 50,000 goes in, 20 opportunities will come out, and you can scale that way. I mean, if you're a marketer, your exec team, your board of directors, they're going to love this method of looking at the world because it's predictable and because it has that iterations of data backing it up, right? So we can say with a lot more confidence how much we're expecting to get out of these types of campaigns. So yeah, that's kind of the benefit of this loop. And so at this point, I will open up to the floor for questions. Like I said in the beginning of this webinar, there's a chat box on the left of your screen for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please ask them there. All right, so we got the. So first question is there an enrichment tool that you recommend? So at Metadata, we use a lot of different tools to enrich our data. So that's something we do. So I guess I would recommend Metadata for that. You know, it's part of our platform, and some of our partners will help with that. So yeah, that's something we can help you do. So if you have an interest in that, we can definitely show you what is possible through Metadata. The next question is what marketing automation system would you recommend? So that's a fun one. At the risk of alienating some partners, I will say that we do have at Metadata a comparison doc. So I can send that out to you, or send me a note after the webinar, and we can get you a link to that, or just search for it on the Metadata blog. But we've done a comparison, I think, of the top 5 different marketing automation tools. So it kind of goes feature by feature. And the short answer is the marketing automation system you use is going to depend on where you are in your business. If you're a little earlier stage, maybe you don't need something as robust as Marketo, whereas if you're maturing as an organization, something like one of these heavier systems might make more sense for you as you're evolving. All right, next question here is, can you get new leads with Metadata? Yes, absolutely. So we generate new leads through running ad campaigns, and we have, like I mentioned, the TOEFL, the top of the funnel lookalikes are so those lookalike leads are things that you can generate through Metadata. So we got another question here. This seems geared towards high volume situations. How small could the numbers be to make sense? So yeah, I mean, definitely you want to do as much experimentation as possible. So it's possible to do smaller experiments where you're just testing the waters, but in order to get the full insights, you have to run several hundred of these tests. So it depends, I guess, is the answer for that question. We've seen anything from if you want to generate a couple hundred leads and see how those go, or if you want to build a whole program out of it, it kind of varies. So yeah, depending on how small it is, you can talk to our sales folks, and they'll do a better job at evaluating whether or not it's right for us. But it is possible to do smaller experiments. All right. And we got another question here. So let's see. So the question is that our sales models changed since we started collecting opportunity data. If we're selling into new markets, how relevant is the historical data going to be? So that's actually that's an interesting one. So we've seen that at Metadata, we have had companies use our platform to test new markets. So we have some case studies around that as well. So what we've seen is, there are companies that have come to us and said, hey, we already have, a ton of penetration into the market that we are selling into now. We're trying to explore new ones. And so we want to use the Metadata platform to do that. So we can definitely do that kind of experimentation and help define that new model really quickly. I mean, part of the benefit of this level of testing is that you're going to have tons of results very quickly because we're running so many tests simultaneously. So even if your historical data isn't relevant, we'll still look at it because there could be some insights in there. But if you are concerned about that, that's definitely something that's possible, to test new markets and experiment with something where you might not have a ton of historical data about this new segment. But that's something that the testing model and the scientific method really does lend itself to figuring out and doing so quickly. And all right, another question here. What is the most effective channel for B2B advertising? Should we be focusing on business, or should we focus on business-focused networks? Okay, so yeah, I mean, this is something we've seen often, or it's a question we get asked a lot, right? So, there's lots of different networks out there. You might have ads on LinkedIn, you might have ads on Facebook, you might have ads on Twitter or ad networks, right? So, what we see is a lot of people look at, say, Facebook and say, hey, I'm a B2B company. This is not relevant. I don't really need my ads showing up on Facebook. We've heard that before. I don't think that that's the best way to look at it. What we want to do is, like I said, test everything. So when we're running ads, if somebody is relevant to your business and we find them on Facebook, that's not necessarily a bad thing. What you really want to do is run the tests and see if the numbers back up your hypothesis. So if you're not sure that Facebook is going to be a good channel for you because it's not business focused, then run some ads on it and see if those conversion rates are better or worse than some of the other networks. If your suspicion's confirmed, then it's something you can shut off quickly. And like I said, 85%. So 15% are successful. Take those successes and rerun or run new experiments to see how you can improve on that. So if Facebook's part of the 85%, fine, but don't necessarily write it off right away. You want to test that stuff first, because you might find that a channel that you don't necessarily think is relevant is really good for you because the cost is great because none of your competitors are there, right? So you don't necessarily want to assume all that stuff. So we have another question. Instead of testing ads, can we use it to test different emails? So I think this is specifically asking about metadata. So for metadata, we don't do email testing, so that you wouldn't be able to use metadata for that. But if you're asking about the concepts, then yes. I think with emails, doing simple A/B testing is certainly good to do, but it's challenging to figure out which variables you need to test when, because your volume of tests is going to be lower. So that's something where anytime you can run more tests or get more data from your email campaigns, that's going to help figure out what's working, what's not. The other thing is, if you're running email campaigns, if you have targeted accounts or if you have personas that you're targeting, you absolutely want to make sure that those emails are going to match that. So if it's a very technical email, you don't necessarily want to send that to the budgeting person because they're not going to care. Or vice versa. So yeah, you can apply those learnings to the way you're setting up your emails, or if it's a specific company that you're targeting, you might want to tailor an email campaign around that company, especially if it's a larger one where you have hundreds of contacts there. Make it, if you're selling to, I think Coca-Cola was the one I mentioned earlier. So if you're selling to Coca-Cola, make it relevant to their company. Make it address Coca-Cola directly, or talk about the soda industry, or whatever their role is in that. Anything you can do to make it more targeted is going to have a positive. Generally, you're going to find that doing it right has a positive effect. So you can definitely apply that to the way you're running emails. And then can you discuss what particular channels and specific types of ads have been successful for you? So we've seen ads on all sorts of different channels and all different types of ads work really well. Personally, I'm a big fan of retargeting. It's especially with the various tools that you can use to track people. If they're visiting your website, that means they're good. Another thing that we've seen is kind of similar to retargeting, but you have these specific company lists that you're targeting, and you want to just narrow it down to people that are on that list, right? So that's the type of thing where, again, it may not necessarily matter what the channel is, but what matters is that you're really just focusing on the companies that are relevant to you. Because they're on this list that they're relevant, that your salespeople are going to see these leads come in and they're going to be happy with them because they're on that white list of companies. Let's see, what kind of rate lift do you typically see applied to fine-tune optimizations? Yeah, we have a number of case studies about that explore this in depth. We've seen 300% lift over the course of a short period of time. There are lots of examples of these. There's lots of examples of how our customers are getting better results. But the thing that we want to focus on here is again, what kind of KPIs are you measuring? So that's where I think that's a more important question to a lot of our customers in the end, that is necessarily than the specific type of lift. It's figuring out like how are you moving beyond just saying, hey, we got 100 people converted versus the last campaign where we got 30 people converted. Well, that's nice, but we really want to focus on how do those people contribute to your sales funnel, and how do they contribute to your pipeline. So beyond just seeing a lift, and yeah, that we definitely have, our customers definitely notice a lift, and we discuss with them what we're going to measure and how we optimize for that, and what we're measuring, or what kind of results we can expect from that. But a more important question is going to be, what exactly are you measuring, and what lift are you looking for? If you just want to generate more volume, that's not necessarily going to be as beneficial to your business as getting higher quality. So yeah, you really have to figure out where you're measuring. All right, and then what tools do you use for the company list targeting? Facebook. So this one, this is part of the features of the metadata platform, is that if you have a list of a target accounts list, it's the metadata platform that helps set up those filters and limit that audience to those companies. So if that's something you're trying to achieve, definitely get in touch with us, and we can help. Using our platform, you'd be able to take that list and apply it as a filter to any of these advertising channels that we've talked about today. All right. Well, it looks like we're about at the 45-minute mark. So if you have any additional questions, definitely get in touch with us. You can either tweet us at Metadata.io or send an email to sales@Metadata.io, and we'll get back to you right away. As I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, it's being recorded, so we'll get the recording out to you folks over email in the next day or two. And otherwise, have a wonderful day and happy holidays, and look forward to seeing you in the next year.